The crystal vase shattered against the hardwood floor, scattering white lilies and baby's breath across the entryway. I stood frozen, my hands still raised in the position they'd held moments before arranging my late husband's favorite flowers for his memorial service. "Who keeps shrines like that?" Victoria shrieked, her perfectly manicured finger jabbing toward the photograph of Thomas I'd placed on the console table. "This isn't a funeral home, Margaret." How am I supposed to film content in here when it looks like someone died? Someone had died. My husband. 1 year ago tomorrow. I opened my mouth to speak, but Victoria wasn't finished. She grabbed the silver frame, the one Thomas and I had bought in Prague on our 30th anniversary, and shoved it into my chest. "Pack this up. Pack all of it up. David and I need this space." My son appeared in the doorway, his eyes darting between his wife and me. I waited for him to say something, anything, to remind Victoria that Thomas was his father, that tomorrow marked 1 year since we'd buried him, that these flowers, this photograph, this grief, it all mattered. "Mom," David said finally, running his hand through his hair, "maybe Victoria has a point. The house does feel heavy. All these reminders." "Reminders?" I whispered. "Of your father?" "We've been talking," Victoria cut in, linking her arm through David's. "This house is worth a fortune. The market's insane right now. We could sell it, get you set up in a nice assisted living facility. They have craft rooms and everything, and David and I could finally buy something modern, something that fits our lifestyle." I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he become this person? This stranger who stood silent while his wife swept his father's memory off the table like dust. "This is my home," I said quietly. Victoria laughed. "Actually, it's not. Show her, David." My son pulled a document from his back pocket. "You signed power of attorney last month, remember? After Dad died, you were so overwhelmed with everything. I've been handling the estate, and, well, I've already accepted an offer. The new owners take possession in 30 days. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "You sold my house? It's for the best, Mom. You're alone here. It's too much space, too much maintenance. And honestly, you need to move on. Move on." As if grief had an expiration date. As if I could box up 42 years of marriage and ship it to Goodwill. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked. Victoria pulled out her phone, already scrolling. "There's a Sunrise Senior Living in Daly City. They have availability. It's only like 45 minutes away. We can visit." She said it the way people promise to call words without weight. "I'd like to speak with my son alone," I said. Victoria's eyes narrowed, but David touched her arm. "Give us a minute, babe." She huffed but retreated toward the kitchen, her heels clicking against the floor Thomas had refinished with his own hands. "David," I started, but he held up his hand. "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Victoria and I are trying to build a life. She's growing her brand. She has almost 200,000 followers now. We need a space that works for us. And I need a space that holds my memories of your father. He's gone, Mom. The house won't bring him back." The words hit like a slap. I stared at my only child, this man I'd raised, this boy who used to cry when I left for parent-teacher conferences because he'd miss me too much. Where had that boy gone? "I need you to leave," David said softly. "By the end of the week. The buyers are doing renovations and they want the house empty. It's Monday. The memorial is Wednesday. Then have your memorial somewhere else. A park or something. This needs to happen, Mom." He walked away before I could respond, left me standing there among the broken glass and scattered flowers, the scent of lilies filling my nose like a funeral I couldn't escape. I gathered my things slowly, mechanically. My hands shook as I packed Thomas's photograph, his reading glasses that still sat on the nightstand, the sweater he'd left draped over his chair, the one I couldn't bring myself to wash because it still smelled like him. 3 suitcases. 42 years reduced to 3 suitcases. David wouldn't look at me when I carried them to the door. Victoria filmed herself doing yoga in what used to be our sunroom, the space where Thomas and I had drunk coffee every morning, watching the fog roll across the bay. I didn't say goodbye. What was there to say? The door clicked shut behind me, and I stood on the porch of the Victorian house Thomas had spent 2 years restoring. Every shingle, every window frame, every piece of crown moulding, he'd touched it all. Loved it all. And now it was gone. I called my friend Patricia from the bus stop. "Margaret, where are you?" You sound. Can I stay with you for a few days? Just until I figure things out. Patricia didn't ask questions. Get yourself over here. I'll make up the guest room. Her small apartment in the Sunset District smelled like lavender and old books. She made tea while I sat on her threadbare couch, the events of the day playing on loop in my mind. Why did you leave? Patricia asked gently, setting a mug in front of me. That house is yours, Margaret. Thomas left it to you. David has power of attorney. He's already sold it. Did you read what you signed? I hadn't. I'd been drowning in paperwork after Thomas died, insurance claims, bank statements, utility bills, and David had been so helpful. Just sign here, Mom. I'll handle everything. I'd trusted him. I was so stupid, I whispered. No, Patricia said firmly. You were grieving, there's a difference. She made me eat soup even though I wasn't hungry. Showed me to the guest room with its narrow bed and window overlooking the neighbor's fence. It wasn't my home, but it was safe. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Victoria's face as she destroyed the memorial. David's eyes as he told me to leave. The lilies scattered across the floor like bones. At 2 a.m, I got up and found my purse. Inside was the power of attorney document David had given me. I hadn't looked at it, hadn't wanted to see the words that gave away my life. But now I read it. Every line, every clause. And I saw it. The property address was wrong. It listed our old apartment on Geary Street, the place Thomas and I had rented when we first moved to San Francisco in 1985. We'd sold that place 30 years ago. The Victorian house wasn't mentioned at all. My hands trembled as I dug deeper into my purse, finding the envelope from Thomas's attorney that I'd shoved in there months ago, unable to face opening it. Inside were documents. Legal documents. Last will and testament of Thomas James Chen. I read through the night. By the time the sun rose, painting Patricia's ceiling gold, I understood everything. Thomas had known. Somehow, my brilliant husband had known. 2 months before the cancer took him, he'd transferred every property he owned into my name alone. Not joint ownership. Mine. The Victorian house. The 4 other restored Victorians he'd renovated over the years and kept as rentals. Everything. And he'd left a letter. My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I need you to know something. Last week, David came to me asking about the properties. He wanted to know their worth. When I told him, he got quiet in a way that scared me. I don't want to believe our son would take advantage of you, but grief makes people vulnerable, so I'm taking precautions. Everything is yours now. In your name only. I've left instructions with Miss Elena Rodriguez, the estate attorney. She'll help you understand what you have. The houses aren't just investments, my love. They're your security, your independence, your future. Don't let anyone tell you what to do with them. I love you. I'll love you past death, past time, past everything. Thomas. I sobbed into Patricia's couch cushions, my whole body shaking. Thomas had protected me even from the grave. At 9 o'clock, I called the number on Miss Rodriguez's card. Mrs. Chen, she said when I identified myself. I've been hoping you'd reach out. We need to talk about your properties. I met her at her office in the financial district. She was younger than I expected, with sharp eyes and a kind smile. Your husband was very thorough, she said, spreading documents across her desk. You own 5 Victorian houses in San Francisco. 4 are currently rented. The 5th is at 2847 Washington Street. My house, the one David claimed he'd sold. Your son has been collecting rent from the other properties, Miss Rodriguez continued, depositing it into an account he controls. That's fraud, Mrs. Chen. And the power of attorney he had you sign? It's invalid because it references the wrong property. Can I get into my house? I asked. She smiled. It's your house. You can do whatever you want with it. Patricia drove me. We pulled up to the Victorian as Victoria was carrying in shopping bags, David trailing behind with more. They'd changed the locks. You can't be here, Victoria said when she saw me. This is our house now. No, I said calmly. It's my house. It's always been my house. David's face went pale. Mom, what are you? Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I pulled out my phone and showed them the property deed. My name? Not his. Not theirs. Mine. That's not possible, David stammered. I have power of attorney. I sold this house. You have a fake power of attorney for a property I haven't owned since 1985, and you've been stealing rent from my other properties for 8 months. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Other properties? 4 more Victorians. Your husband failed to mention those when he was calculating how to steal my life. Miss Rodriguez stepped out of her car, followed by a police officer. Mrs. Victoria and Mr. David Chen? The officer said. We need you to vacate this property immediately. You're trespassing. This is insane! Victoria shrieked. David, tell them! But David just stood there, his face crumbling. I'm sorry, Mum. I didn't know Dad had transferred everything. I thought I saw the market prices, and Victoria wanted we have debts. Gambling, I said. Miss Rodriguez found the accounts. He flinched. You were going to sell my home to pay off your gambling debts and fund your wife's Instagram lifestyle. I was going to take care of you, David protested. The assisted living place is nice. You'd have been safe. Safe? You threw me out 3 days before your father's memorial. Victoria grabbed her purse. I'm not dealing with this. David, get our stuff. Leave it, I said. All of it. Consider it payment for the 8 months of rent you stole. The officer escorted them out. They left in Victoria's Range Rover, the one they'd bought with my rental income. I stood in the doorway of my home, my real home, and breathed. Patricia squeezed my hand. What now? What now? Good question. I spent the next month learning my new reality. I owned 5 Victorian houses worth a combined $8.5 million. Thomas had left me wealthy, and I hadn't even known. Miss Rodriguez helped me set up proper management for the rental properties. I met my tenants, a young nurse named Sarah, who worked double shifts at UCSF, a retired teacher like me named Mr. Patterson, a single mother named Keisha, with 3 kids. When I told them I was the new landlord, they looked terrified. Please don't raise the rent, Sarah begged. I can barely afford it now. I looked at their faces and saw myself 3 weeks ago, standing on a porch with 3 suitcases and nowhere to go. I'm lowering it, I said. 20% across the board. Keisha started crying. You're lowering it? My husband restored these houses because he believed everyone deserved a beautiful home. I'm not going to dishonor that. I found Patricia a 1-bedroom in the building on Fillmore. Refused to let her pay more than half of what the previous landlord charged. Margaret, you can't do this, she protested. You need income. I have more than I need. You've been living in a shoebox for 15 years. Take the apartment. She hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. The memorial service for Thomas happened on the 1-year anniversary of his death, just as planned. But instead of the small gathering I'd envisioned, it became something more. My tenants came. Miss Rodriguez came. Patricia's book club came. People who'd known Thomas through his restoration work came, bringing stories of his kindness, his craftsmanship, his vision. We held it in the garden behind my house, the garden Thomas had designed with climbing roses and a fountain he'd salvaged from a demolished hotel. David came too. He stood at the back, alone. Victoria had left him 2 weeks earlier, moved in with some tech entrepreneur in Palo Alto. After everyone left, he approached me. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said. Good. Because I can't. Not yet. I threw you out on the anniversary of Dad's death. I let Victoria destroy his memorial. I tried to steal from you. His voice cracked. I don't know how I became this person. I looked at my son and saw the boy he'd been and the man he'd become, and the stranger in between. Your father left me a letter, I said. He knew you'd come asking about the properties. He was worried. David's eyes filled with tears. He protected you from me. He protected both of us. From your worst impulses. I started gambling after he died. I couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle losing him. And Victoria kept pushing for more, bigger, better, everything. And I just spiraled. And you thought selling my home would fix it? I thought money would fix everything. I was wrong about that too. We stood in silence, the scent of roses heavy in the air. I have a therapist, David said finally. And I joined Gamblers Anonymous. I know it doesn't undo what I did, but I'm trying. Your father would want me to help you, I said. But I'm not your father. I'm the woman you threw out of her home 3 days before her husband's memorial. He flinched. I know. I'll make you a deal. 1 year. You stay in therapy, Stay in GA. Prove you're serious about changing. Then we'll talk. About what? About whether there's still a relationship worth saving. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. 1 year. I'll prove it to you, Mom. I swear. He left, and I sat in Thomas's garden, listening to the fountain and remembering. Over the next months, I built something new, not just a life, a purpose. I started a scholarship fund for children of single parents, using the rental income. $5,000 a year for kids trying to go to college despite the odds. I hired Keisha to help me manage the properties. She had a head for numbers and a heart for people. I taught part-time at the community college, leading creative writing workshops for seniors, and I went on dates. Patricia set me up with her friend's brother, a retired architect who'd known Thomas professionally. We went to museums and argued about modern design versus classical. It wasn't love, but it was companionship. It was life. David kept his word. Every week, he sent me updates, his therapy sessions, his GA meetings, the construction job he'd taken. He didn't ask for money, didn't ask for forgiveness, just kept showing up. On the anniversary of the day he'd thrown me out, he came to the house with a package. Inside was the silver frame from Prague, the one Victoria had shoved at me. He'd had it repaired, the dent hammered out, the glass replaced. I found it in storage, he said. I wanted you to have it back. I took the frame and looked at the photograph of Thomas and me in front of Charles Bridge, both of us laughing at something I couldn't remember anymore. Thank you, I said. Can I ask you something? David said. Why didn't you press charges? Miss Rodriguez said you could have. For the fraud. I thought about it. About revenge and justice, and the difference between the two. Because you're my son, I said finally. And because your father loved you, even when you were at your worst. And because maybe people deserve a chance to be better than their worst moment. Even after everything I did. I'm not saying I've forgiven you. I'm saying I haven't given up on you. It wasn't reconciliation. Not yet. But it was a beginning. That night, I sat in my living room with a glass of wine, Thomas's reading glasses on the table beside me. The house was quiet, except for the old pipes creaking and the fog rolling in from the bay. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, lost in grief, allowing herself to be diminished, accepting cruelty as if it were love. I thought about the woman I was now, a landlord, a teacher, a scholarship fund director, a woman who'd discovered her own strength in the ruins of her worst day. Victoria had been right about one thing. The house had felt heavy with memories. But now I understood that wasn't a curse. It was a gift. Every creaking floorboard Thomas had replaced. Every window he'd restored. Every wall he'd painted. They weren't shrines to death. They were monuments to love, to the life we'd built, to the man who'd protected me even when he knew he couldn't stay. I raised my glass to his photograph. Thank you, I whispered, for everything, for protecting me, for loving me, for knowing I'd be strong enough to stand on my own. The fog pressed against the windows, and somewhere in the house, a pipe groaned. I smiled. It sounded like home.